Have you ever noticed that the loudest voices don't always speak the truth? That in the heat of anger or disagreement, we often say things we regret forever? Today I want to share with you the transformative power of silence, a tool so simple yet so profound that it can heal conflicts that words often make worse. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strength. Silence is the pause that allows us to breathe before we act, reflect before we react, and listen before we judge. When you choose silence in a conflict, you are not giving up. You are giving yourself the space to understand, to observe, and to respond with wisdom rather than impulsiveness. In conflicts, our egos want to win, our pride wants to be heard, and our emotions want to explode. But think for a moment, how often has shouting solved anything? How often have heated arguments truly created understanding? Rarely, if ever. Silence, on the other hand, has a power words cannot match. It calms the storm, it opens the mind, it touches hearts in ways words fail to reach. When you let silence take the lead, you are sending a message louder than words ever could. I choose peace over chaos, understanding over anger, and growth over resentment. Healing conflicts doesn't always require explanations or justifications. Sometimes it requires restraint. Sometimes it requires stepping back, taking a deep breath, and letting the other person feel heard, even without saying a single word. You will be surprised how much clarity and resolution emerge when silence replaces reactive words. So the next time conflict arises, don't rush to defend yourself. Don't rush to prove you're right. Allow silence to guide you. Let your calmness speak louder than your anger. Let your patience heal wounds that words cannot reach. And remember, in silence you don't lose. You gain the power to transform conflict into understanding, resentment into respect, and tension into connection. Silence is strength. It is the quiet power that does not need validation from anyone, yet commands respect effortlessly. In a world that constantly tells us to speak louder, to assert ourselves aggressively, to push our opinions until they are heard, silence often feels like surrender. But in truth, it is the ultimate form of mastery over oneself. Imagine a child in a classroom being teased by peers. The instinct is to shout back, to defend oneself immediately. But the child who chooses silence observes, reflects, and responds later with composure. The quietness itself becomes a shield, and in that moment, the child has more power than the loudest voice in the room. That is the first glimpse of strength that silence offers. It allows you to rise above the chaos of immediate reactions and gain control of the situation. Consider a workplace scenario. A colleague spreads rumors about your efforts, and the natural reaction is anger, confrontation, and argument. But a wise person stays silent. Instead of reacting, they focus on their work, letting their excellence speak. In time, the results become undeniable, and the truth stands tall without a single word of defense. People remember the one who acted with grace, not the one who yelled the loudest. Silence in such moments is not a lack of action. It is the strategic patience that transforms adversity into victory. Strength is not measured by how loud you can speak, but by how calmly you can hold your ground while others shout. Even in personal relationships, silence is an incredible force. When someone close says something hurtful, the temptation is to fire back, to explain, to justify your feelings. Yet the person who remains silent for a moment gains perspective. They understand not just the words, but the emotions behind them. Silence allows empathy to arise. It cools the fire of immediate anger, and it provides space for genuine communication later. Imagine a couple having a heated argument over a trivial matter. One chooses to raise their voice. The other chooses to remain quiet for a moment, absorbing the emotion and responding with understanding rather than retaliation. The latter not only resolves the conflict but also earns deeper respect. In silence there is clarity, and clarity is strength. Look at the world of sports. A tennis player loses a crucial point. A football player misses a penalty, a runner stumbles. The instinct is often to curse, complain, or vent frustration. But champions know the secret of silence. They pause, breathe, and redirect their energy. Michael Jordan didn't let failure define him. He used the quiet moments between games to reflect, improve, and come back stronger. Silence here becomes a tool for resilience. It is in the pause, in the stillness, that strength is cultivated and the loud cheers of victory follow naturally. In everyday life, silence teaches humility and self-control. Picture someone driving, another cuts them off aggressively. Most react with honking, shouting, or anger. Yet the person who remains silent avoids escalating the situation, keeps their calm, and reaches their destination safely. Their silence does not mean weakness. It shows mastery over impulse, over pride, and over the need to prove oneself in every fleeting encounter. In these moments, silence is more powerful than confrontation. It prevents conflict, preserves peace, and demonstrates an inner fortitude that words could never achieve. Parents also understand the power of silence in shaping character. When a child misbehaves, the immediate reaction is often shouting or scolding, but the parent who pauses, chooses silence, and observes understands the deeper reasons for the behavior. They respond with wisdom rather than anger, guiding the child with lessons rather than lectures. Silence becomes a teacher, showing that true strength is not in dominating others, but in nurturing them thoughtfully. It communicates patience, thoughtfulness, and emotional intelligence, qualities that define lifelong strength. In society, silence is the voice of the unshakable. Activists, leaders, and visionaries often use silence as a tool to make statements louder than words ever could. Gandhi's non-violent resistance, the silent protests of countless movements around the world, demonstrate that strength does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, waits, and strikes through persistence and principle. When the world expects anger, defiance, or aggression, silence becomes the unexpected force that commands attention, inspires change, and earns respect. Strength is not in confrontation. Strength is in knowing when not to engage unnecessarily and when to let action speak. Even within ourselves, silence holds immense power. The mind constantly floods us with thoughts, fears, doubts, and judgments. We fill these moments with noise, music, social media, constant chatter, to avoid the discomfort of introspection. But those who embrace silence discover strength beyond the external world. Meditation, reflection, quiet walks, or simply sitting with one's thoughts provides a clarity that fuels every decision, every interaction, and every achievement. Silence strengthens the mind, sharpens the focus, and builds resilience against the storms of life. It is the foundation upon which true power is built. In every corner of life, silence is strength. In classrooms, workplaces, relationships, sports, driving, parenting, society, and within our own minds. It is the calm in the storm, the pause that prevents destruction, the invisible force that moves mountains quietly. To remain silent when provoked, to wait when impatience calls, to breathe when chaos erupts, to reflect when anger rises. This is not inaction, this is mastery. This is the silent roar of strength that changes outcomes, earns respect, and cultivates wisdom. Those who understand this secret wield an invisible power, a quiet force that words cannot measure, a strength that shapes destinies without raising a single voice. Pause before you respond. In the heat of the moment, our emotions often hijack our minds, pushing us to react impulsively, speak harshly, or act in ways that later leave us filled with regret. But strength, wisdom, and clarity are born in the pause. The moment you stop, breathe, and consider your response, you are no longer a prisoner of your emotions. You become the master of the situation. Imagine a friend saying something hurtful in passing. The first instinct is to snap back, to defend yourself, to correct the perceived wrong. Yet by pausing, even for a few seconds, you gain the power to choose your words carefully, to respond not with anger, but with insight. That pause transforms a potential conflict into an opportunity for understanding. Consider a scenario in the workplace. A manager criticizes your project unfairly in front of colleagues. Your mind races with defensive arguments, resentment, and frustration. The easy route is to respond immediately, to prove yourself, to raise your voice. But those who pause recognize the difference between reaction and response. They take a breath, analyze the criticism objectively, and reply with calm reasoning, or choose to respond later with a well-thought-out explanation. In doing so, they preserve their dignity, maintain professional respect, and turn a moment of potential humiliation into a demonstration of intelligence and composure. Pausing is not avoidance, it is strategy. In relationships, pausing before responding is even more critical. When a loved one says something that triggers pain or anger, the knee-jerk reaction is often defensive or retaliatory. Yet the person who pauses sees beyond the immediate words to the emotions beneath. They recognize that sometimes people speak from their own frustration, insecurities, or fatigue. By taking a moment to breathe, to reflect, to step back emotionally, they respond with empathy rather than hostility. Imagine a husband and wife in a heated argument. One chooses to pause, listens, and understands the emotions behind the words, responding with calm and compassion. The fight de-escalates and both feel heard, valued, and connected. In that pause lies the power to preserve relationships and build trust. Even in the small frustrations of daily life, pausing before responding shows immense strength. Picture someone cutting in line at a store or a driver honking aggressively. The instinct is to shout, gesture, or express anger immediately, but pausing allows you to assess the situation calmly. Perhaps the person is rushing for an emergency, or maybe it's a minor incident that doesn't deserve your energy. By choosing to pause, you prevent unnecessary conflict, maintain your inner peace, and demonstrate control over impulses that others lack. In such ordinary moments, pausing before responding reflects the quiet power of self-mastery. In parenting, the principle of pausing before responding becomes life-changing. Children often test limits, act out, or express frustration in ways that challenge a parent's patience. The immediate response may be yelling, punishment, or overreaction, but a parent who pauses, observes, and reflects before responding teaches lessons without inflicting fear. That pause allows them to address behavior constructively, instill values, and nurture emotional intelligence in the child. A parent who waits before speaking demonstrates that true authority is rooted in calm, thoughtful guidance rather than impulsive dominance. In the professional world, pausing before responding is the difference between mediocrity and excellence. Negotiations, meetings, debates all require careful consideration. Reacting impulsively may damage relationships, create misunderstandings, or lead to lost opportunities. A successful negotiator listens, pauses, and weighs options before speaking. By doing so, they project confidence, clarity, and control, often turning situations in their favor without needing aggression. Pausing gives time to analyze, evaluate, and deliver responses that are precise, impactful, and effective. Even in social media interactions, the value of pausing cannot be overstated. Words typed in anger or frustration can travel across the world in seconds, leaving permanent marks on reputations and relationships. Choosing to pause, think, and reflect before responding online prevents unnecessary conflicts, miscommunication, and regret. It allows you to maintain dignity, protect your mental peace, and choose your words consciously. Every post, every comment, and every response becomes a deliberate act of wisdom rather than an impulsive release of emotion. Pause before you respond, and you discover that silence, reflection, and thoughtfulness often speak louder than words. A pause allows the mind to filter emotion from reason, to turn instinct into strategy, and to replace reactive impulses with purposeful action. It teaches patience, builds self-discipline, and transforms ordinary moments into opportunities for growth. The person who masters the pause in anger, frustration, or haste wields a subtle yet unmatched power. It is the difference between a fleeting reaction that creates regret and a considered response that earns respect. In every conversation, every argument, every challenge, the pause is the doorway to clarity, understanding, and mastery of both self and circumstance. Even in moments of public humiliation or criticism, pausing before responding demonstrates courage. It shows that your worth is not determined by immediate reactions or external validation. Think of an actor being criticized unfairly in an interview, or a public figure facing harsh remarks. Those who pause, reflect, and respond with grace show the world that they are not controlled by others' opinions. They are guided by inner wisdom. In that silence, strength is visible, authority is respected, and dignity remains intact. Pausing before responding is more than just a technique. It is a mindset, a philosophy of life. It teaches that patience is power, that reflection is a form of courage, and that the greatest victories often come from the moments we choose not to act impulsively. It turns challenges into opportunities, conflict into connection, and pressure into composure. Every second spent pausing is a step toward mastering your emotions, elevating your actions, and transforming the ordinary into extraordinary. Listen deeply, In a world filled with constant noise, chatter, and distractions, true listening has become a rare art. Most people hear words, but they do not listen. They wait for their turn to speak, form judgments, or let assumptions cloud their understanding. But those who listen deeply tap into a power that transforms relationships, resolves conflicts, and opens doors to wisdom that words alone cannot convey. Imagine a friend sharing their struggles late at night. The temptation is to offer advice, interject with your own stories, or rush to provide a solution. But deep listening means giving full attention, observing tone, emotion, and unsaid words. It is in this presence that the speaker feels truly valued, understood, and supported. Consider a parent and a teenager. The teenager storms into the room, angry and frustrated, with words that sting and accusations that hurt. The instinct is to defend, to lecture, or dismiss their feelings. Yet a parent who listens deeply does something remarkable. They tune into the emotion beneath the words, the fear behind the anger, the vulnerability hiding behind the defiance. By listening without interruption, they create a space where understanding grows, where trust is nurtured, and where the bond strengthens. Sometimes listening is not about solving the problem. It is about showing that you care enough to understand before acting. In workplaces, listening deeply is a hallmark of leadership. A manager who truly listens to their team uncovers insights others overlook. They hear not just what is said, but what is implied, frustrations, hidden ideas, and unmet needs. This ability to listen transforms meetings from routine discussions into problem-solving sessions and innovation incubators. A team member may express a small concern about a project, which at first seems minor, but a manager who listens deeply recognizes the underlying issue, prevents bigger failures, and inspires loyalty. People remember leaders who listen because listening communicates respect, value, and empowerment without uttering a single command. Even in friendships, deep listening is transformative. Friends may share stories, complain about life, or reveal secrets. To many, these are just words, but to those who listen deeply, they are gateways to the soul. Consider two friends talking over coffee. One is speaking rapidly, juggling emotions and thoughts. The other listens deeply, not only hearing the words, but understanding the pauses, the sighs, the trembling tone, and the subtle cues that reveal pain, hope, or excitement. The listener becomes a mirror of empathy, reflecting, understanding back. This act creates trust so profound that the speaker feels safe, validated, and strengthened. Deep listening builds connections that endure storms, misunderstandings, and time itself. In conflicts, listening deeply is a weapon of wisdom. When tensions flare, arguments escalate, and people are consumed by their need to be heard, pausing to truly listen can disarm hostility. Imagine a heated family disagreement. Everyone is shouting to prove a point, but the one who listens deeply observes the underlying fears and motivations of others. They understand not just the words, but the hearts behind them. In doing so, they respond with clarity and calmness that diffuses anger and inspires reflection. Deep listening turns adversaries into collaborators and disagreements into opportunities for growth. In romantic relationships, listening deeply is the cornerstone of intimacy. Partners often think they communicate well, but real communication goes beyond words. It requires paying attention to tone, expressions, and emotions that are left unspoken. A partner may say, "I'm fine," while their eyes betray worry, sadness, or fear. The one who listens deeply perceives the unsaid, responds with care, and strengthens the emotional bond. Deep listening creates an environment where vulnerability is safe, love is nurtured, and connection is profound. It is the difference between hearing and truly understanding, between being present and merely existing alongside someone. Even strangers benefit from deep listening. Consider someone in a public space, sharing a personal story, venting frustration, or seeking guidance. The simple act of being present, listening attentively, and acknowledging their experience can uplift them in ways you may never know. Listening deeply communicates value without judgment, compassion without obligation, and strength without dominance. It reminds us that every person carries a story, and every story deserves to be heard with attention and care. In daily life, listening deeply sharpens awareness and empathy. It teaches patience, self-control, and the ability to understand perspectives different from your own. When you listen deeply, you stop projecting your assumptions and start perceiving reality as it is. A CO worker may respond differently than you expect in a stressful situation. A child may express love in an unusual way, or a stranger may react in ways that challenge your beliefs. Deep listening allows you to see beyond the surface, adapt gracefully, and respond thoughtfully. It transforms ordinary moments into opportunities for wisdom and understanding. Even in moments of personal reflection, deep listening is vital. Listening to your own thoughts, emotions, and instincts provides clarity and self-awareness. We often rush through our own minds, trying to solve problems hastily or ignore uncomfortable feelings. Yet when we pause and listen deeply to ourselves, we uncover truths, desires, and strengths that guide our decisions and actions. Deep listening is a bridge between self-awareness and mastery, between reaction and intentional action. It allows us to navigate life with grace, purpose, and emotional intelligence. Listening deeply is not passive. It is an active, conscious choice to give attention, presence, and understanding. It is the recognition that words alone are insufficient and that true comprehension requires tuning into the layers beneath. In every conversation, every interaction, every relationship, and every reflection, deep listening is a source of immense power. It transforms ordinary communication into connection, superficial interactions into trust, and fleeting moments into lasting impact. Those who master the art of deep listening discover that strength lies not in dominating the conversation, but in opening the heart and mind to what is truly being expressed. Observe, don't judge. In a world that moves at lightning speed, where people rush to conclusions, label others, and form opinions based on fragments of information, the ability to observe without judgment is a rare and transformative power. To observe is to see clearly, to perceive deeply, and to understand without coloring reality with assumptions, biases, or anger. Imagine walking down the street and seeing someone stumble, their clothes messy, and their expression angry. The instinct might be to judge them. They must be careless, or they must be rude, but observing without judgment means pausing, noticing, and considering possibilities beyond the surface. Perhaps they just received bad news. Perhaps they are rushing to help someone in need, or perhaps they are simply lost in thought. By observing without judgment, you cultivate empathy, wisdom, and the power to respond rather than react. Consider the workplace. A colleague misses a deadline, and the immediate reaction is frustration or criticism, but someone who observes without judgment looks deeper. They see the effort behind the mistake, the stress the person may be under, or the lack of resources that caused the failure. Observation without judgment allows one to approach the situation with solutions, guidance, and support rather than creating conflict. Leaders who practice this principle inspire loyalty because people feel understood, valued, and not condemned for their struggles. Observation is the foundation of compassion. Judgment is the enemy of understanding. In personal relationships, observing without judging is transformative. When a loved one acts in a way that seems hurtful, irritating, or selfish, the knee-jerk reaction is often anger, criticism, or withdrawal. But observing allows you to step back, notice the circumstances, the emotions, and the pressures influencing their behavior. Perhaps a partner is quiet not out of disinterest, but out of exhaustion. Perhaps a friend seems distant because they are struggling silently. By observing without judgment, you create space for empathy and communication, and you strengthen bonds rather than letting misunderstanding grow. Observation transforms perception, revealing layers beneath actions that casual judgment can never uncover. Even in parenting, the principle of observing without judging is invaluable. Children often behave in ways that seem irrational, careless, or disobedient. The instinct might be to scold or punish, but when parents pause to observe, they notice patterns, triggers, and underlying emotions. They see that a child's tantrum may stem from fatigue, fear, or unmet needs rather than willful disobedience. Observing without judgment allows guidance with understanding, teaches lessons without instilling shame, and nurtures confidence rather than resentment. A parent who observes without judgment models emotional intelligence for their children, showing them that strength lies in clarity and patience, not criticism. Even strangers benefit from observation without judgment. In public spaces, one might see a person acting strangely or differently from social norms. It's easy to form opinions based on appearance, accent, or behavior. Yet those who observe without judgment cultivate tolerance and humanity. Perhaps the person is struggling with mental health issues, or maybe they are expressing creativity in a way that challenges convention. Observation without judgment trains the mind to perceive reality as it is, not filtered through fear, bias, or ego. It opens doors to compassion, understanding, and connection in ways that snap judgments can never achieve. In daily life, observing without judging strengthens emotional resilience. When someone cuts you off in traffic, your immediate response might be anger or insult. But observation without judgment allows you to see the context. Perhaps they are rushing to an emergency. Perhaps they are distracted by a family matter. By observing first and refraining from judgment, you maintain your inner peace and choose your response consciously. This practice trains patience, self-control, and clarity, making you immune to unnecessary emotional turbulence created by assumptions. In moments of personal reflection, observing without judgment is equally critical. We often judge ourselves harshly, focusing on mistakes, failures, or shortcomings. Yet observation allows you to see your actions, emotions, and thoughts clearly without condemnation. When you observe yourself without judgment, you identify patterns, recognize areas for growth, and understand your strengths and weaknesses honestly. Self-observation is the first step towards self-mastery. Self-judgment only leads to doubt, guilt, and limitation. By observing yourself as you would a close friend, you gain insight, confidence, and the ability to act from clarity rather than fear. Even in the larger scope of society, observing without judgment has transformative power. Social media, news, and conversations often highlight conflict, division, and difference. People rush to take sides, criticize, and condemn. Those who practice observation without judgment, however, seek understanding first. They notice motivations, perspectives, and context before forming opinions. They listen to stories, watch actions, and consider backgrounds before labeling people as right or wrong. Observation without judgment is a superpower in an age of noise, teaching patience, empathy, and critical thinking. In moments of conflict, observing without judgment allows resolution. Arguments often escalate because people focus on proving themselves right, criticizing others, or reacting emotionally. Yet one who observes deeply notices not just the words, but the emotions, intentions, and unmet needs behind them. They see the patterns, the triggers, and the opportunities to respond wisely. Observation without judgment creates understanding, transforms tension into dialogue, and prevents unnecessary escalation. It is the difference between chaos and clarity, between reaction and mastery. Observing without judgment is more than a practice. It is a way of life. It transforms ordinary perception into extraordinary insight, fleeting interactions into lasting understanding, and superficial judgments into deep wisdom. It is the power to see the world clearly, the people around you authentically, and yourself honestly. Those who master observation without judgment navigate life with calm, empathy, and strength, creating a space where connection, understanding, and growth flourish naturally. It is the silent strength that turns conflict into learning, mistakes into lessons, and everyday moments into opportunities for transformation. Respect others. Respect is not merely a polite gesture or a social expectation. It is the recognition of the inherent value in every human being, regardless of status, appearance, beliefs, or past mistakes. To respect others is to see them fully, to honor their experiences, choices, and emotions, even when they differ from our own. Imagine a cashier at a grocery store who is having a rough day, moving slowly and making small mistakes. Most people complain, sigh, or roll their eyes. But someone who practices respect pauses, smiles, and acknowledges the human being behind the uniform. That simple act of respect uplifts the other person, creating a ripple effect that no judgment, criticism, or impatience could ever achieve. Respect, in its purest form, is powerful. It does not demand agreement. It demands recognition of humanity. Consider the workplace. A new employee joins a team, inexperienced and unsure of their role. The instinct of many is to judge, to criticize, or to dismiss them. But those who respect others recognize that everyone has a beginning, that learning curves are natural, and that patience fosters growth. A respectful mentor listens, guides, and encourages, creating an environment where mistakes become lessons and potential blossoms into competence. In respecting others, you also earn respect, because people mirror the energy and treatment they receive. Respect transforms interactions into opportunities for collaboration rather than conflict, and it builds bridges where judgment only builds walls. In personal relationships, respect is the foundation of trust, love, and harmony. A partner who respects your boundaries, your opinions, and your individuality communicates a strength far greater than words. Conversely, ignoring respect erodes bonds, breeds resentment, and diminishes connection. Imagine a couple arguing over a difference in perspective. One chooses to respect the other's viewpoint, listening actively without interruption or ridicule. The conversation evolves from confrontation to understanding, and both feel valued. Respect does not mean silence in disagreement. It means engaging with honor, acknowledging the other's dignity even when perspectives clash. Even with friends, respect is transformative. Friends may hold different beliefs, pursue different lifestyles, or make choices you do not understand. To respect them is to celebrate diversity rather than impose conformity. Imagine a friend choosing a career path you might consider unconventional or risky. The respectful response is to support their choice, to acknowledge their courage and individuality, rather than undermine them with judgment. Respect strengthens bonds, fosters authenticity, and allows people to grow without fear of ridicule or rejection. Friends who respect each other create environments where honesty, trust, and loyalty thrive. Respect also matters in public spaces and everyday encounters. When someone speaks differently, dresses uniquely, or behaves in ways that challenge societal norms, the instinct may be to judge or mock, but choosing respect allows you to rise above superficial assessments. Perhaps the person you see rushing through the subway is navigating a personal crisis. Perhaps the person speaking in public is trying to inspire change. Respect gives others the dignity to exist as they are, and in doing so, you elevate your own character. It is in respecting others that you cultivate humility, patience, and grace, qualities that define true strength and influence. In parenting, respect is a cornerstone of raising confident, compassionate, and emotionally intelligent children. When parents respect a child's feelings, opinions, and individuality, they foster self-worth and trust. A child who is respected grows up understanding the value of honoring others, making them more empathetic, resilient, and socially aware. Consider a child expressing fear about trying something new. A parent who respects that fear listens, encourages, and validates the experience. Respect in parenting transforms authority from control into guidance and nurtures growth rather than compliance. In conflict situations, respecting others can transform tension into resolution. When arguments arise, it is easy to dismiss, belittle, or dominate. But approaching conflict with respect means acknowledging the other person's feelings and perspective, even if you disagree. Imagine a heated debate where one person listens actively, validates the other's emotion, and chooses words carefully. The energy of the conversation shifts from hostility to dialogue, and resolution becomes possible. Respect is the tool that turns disputes into constructive conversations, and it is a sign of maturity and inner strength. Even in digital spaces where anonymity often encourages cruelty, respect is powerful. Online disagreements, criticism, and trolling are rampant, but choosing to respond with respect changes the narrative. A respectful comment, an empathetic response, or even the choice not to engage disrespectfully sets a standard for others and demonstrates emotional intelligence. Respect in the digital age is a revolutionary act. It communicates civility, patience, and thoughtfulness in an environment dominated by haste, impulsivity, and judgment. Respect also demands self-awareness and humility. It requires recognizing that every person has a story you may never fully understand, challenges you cannot see, and perspectives shaped by experiences beyond your imagination. By respecting others, you not only honor them, but you also cultivate wisdom, patience, and emotional intelligence. Observing respect in action teaches us that true power is not in dominance, coercion, or control, but in recognizing the humanity, dignity, and worth of every individual we encounter. Respect is a daily practice, evident in the way we speak, listen, and act. It is demonstrated in patience at the checkout line, empathy toward co-workers, understanding toward loved ones, encouragement for friends, and civility toward strangers. It is visible in our parenting, digital interactions, and conflict resolution. Respect is not conditional. It is a reflection of character, strength, and awareness. Those who consistently respect others cultivate trust, influence, and relationships that endure life's challenges. It is the invisible force that transforms ordinary interactions into moments of connection, understanding, and inspiration. As we reach the close of this journey, remember this: silence is not emptiness, it is power. Silence is the space where clarity is born, where the storms of emotion settle, and where wisdom takes root. Every moment you choose not to react impulsively, every pause before you speak, every instance you listen deeply, observe without judgment, respect others, and encourage reflection, you are building a life of strength, dignity, and profound influence. Life will constantly test your patience. People will provoke you, circumstances will challenge you, and the world will often demand a loud, reactive response. But the greatest victories, the deepest growth, and the most lasting respect come not from shouting the loudest, but from standing firm in the quiet power of your choices. Imagine a river flowing calmly through the rocks, never struggling against what it cannot move, yet shaping the stones over time. That is the essence of letting silence heal conflicts. By choosing not to react to every provocation, you allow time, understanding, and clarity to reshape the outcomes of your life. You understand that power does not lie in dominating others or winning arguments, but in mastering yourself. As the wise often say, he who controls himself controls the world around him. Every conflict avoided, every response measured, and every reflection nurtured is a testament to your inner strength and emotional mastery. When life tests you, pause. When anger rises, breathe. When someone hurts you, respond not with retaliation but with composure. Every act of patience, every conscious choice to observe before judging, and every effort to respect and understand others creates a ripple that extends far beyond the moment. You become a lighthouse in the storm, calm, unwavering, and illuminating the path for others to follow. People will remember your composure long after the words of anger are forgotten. They will be inspired not by the loudest voice, but by the quiet strength that refuses to be shaken by circumstance. Consider the words of the great Maya Angelou, who said, "I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." When you practice silence, reflection, deep listening, and respect, you are not only preserving your peace, you are transforming how others feel, how they grow, and how they remember you. You are planting seeds of understanding, empathy, and strength that will bloom in ways you may never see, but whose impact will be profound and lasting. Life's conflicts are not your enemies. They are opportunities. Opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Opportunities to respond with dignity instead of frustration, to act with love instead of judgment, to inspire others through calmness instead of chaos. The world will continue to challenge you, but you now hold the most powerful tool of all, the ability to pause, reflect, and respond from a place of awareness. Remember, true power is not loud or aggressive. It is quiet, thoughtful, and unwavering. It is in silence, in patience, and in understanding that the real warriors of life are made. So as you leave today, take this with you. Let silence be your shield, reflection your guide, and respect your compass. Live in a way that your actions speak louder than words, that your calm commands respect, and that your presence inspires growth. You have within you the power to transform conflicts into lessons, misunderstandings into connections, and challenges into opportunities. Stand tall in the quiet strength of your choices. Let your life become a testament to the beauty, wisdom, and power of letting silence heal conflicts. Because when you master yourself, nothing and no one can shake you.